Started. So yes, thank you so much for being here. This is my Nourish and Thrive nutrition webinar. I am Julie Lanford. I am the creator of cancerdietitian.com. I created it in 2007, which seems crazy because I didn't feel like it's that long ago, but it is long ago. I work for Cancer Services Incorporated. We are a local community-based nonprofit in North Carolina that funds my position and this website and makes it possible for you all to participate and have the content and information at no charge. So that's part of what we do and part of our mission, and I'm honored to have this opportunity. Today's topic is nutritious treats. So we're going to talk not just about nutritious treats, but how to incorporate treats into a healthy living or healthy eating pattern for cancer survivors. It's also pretty much about the same information that I would give a general audience around healthy eating. But my main clientele are cancer survivors. So, in case you don't know about me, this is kind of the rundown on my training. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist. I'm a board certified specialist in oncology nutrition. I have my bachelor's degree in biology from NC State University, and then I did my master's in public health and dietetic training at UNC Chapel Hill. And then I did spend some time because I do nonprofit management here with Cancer Services. I have an executive certificate in nonprofit leadership from Duke University. So if anybody's familiar with North Carolina, I've covered like the three largest universities in the Triangle area. And so, I say I have a heart divided with all the loyalties of universities, but I give you all this information because there's a lot of people who have opinions about food and what you should be eating. Most of them don't have training in nutrition, so registered dietitians actually go through certified degree programs that train us on the latest science-based and evidence-based medical information regarding nutrition. So there's a lot of talk these days about physicians and do physicians get trained in nutrition? And dietitians are trained in nutrition, so we have the most recent and updated information, and we spend a lot of classes understanding how the human body digests, absorbs, utilizes what nutrients, and how we can adjust your intake based on your needs or the challenges you might be facing, whether that's cancer treatment or surgeries or other types of illnesses that influence your nutrition. So anyway, we call ourselves the experts, the nutrition experts, and we do work very closely alongside with physicians to make sure that patients get their needs met. A lot of cancer centers do have dietitians on staff available for your consultation. Some of the smaller ones don't have them on staff, but they can refer you out if you would need individual counseling. All right, so that's about me, but this is what we are going to talk about today. Our topic is nutritious treats because I've been sort of following this theme a little bit since the beginning of the year. I did an article on my website about sugar. I did an article about carbohydrates. I did a cooking class that covered nutritious treats that I'll show you the recipes today. And then I'm hoping to get those recorded into recipe videos to send out next month. So our treats is our theme for the beginning of this year because I find that a lot of people who face a cancer diagnosis, they want to eat healthy, and sometimes they go a little too far and don't allow themselves some of the treats that help give our lives a good quality and filled with, joy. And so I wanted to cover this topic to help you all figure out, well, what's going to work for you in terms of meeting your nutrition needs, but still allowing yourself to enjoy some of the most delicious, foods that are around. So we're going to talk about just the basics that you need to know about nutrition and cancer to make good educated choices. We're going to talk about how treats fit into a nutritious diet. We're going to talk about listening to your body, evaluating the difference between cravings and hunger. And then I will talk some about delicious and nutritious treat ideas. And maybe you guys will share some ideas in the chat as well. So first of all, I think it's important we're all on the same page in terms of nutrition and cancer, the things you need to know. And I hosted a GI cancer survivorship conference this week in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And we had a panel of medical experts that was really great. And one of the questions that came through was asking about nutrition and diet, which of course I told them, oh, you can join my webinars, but let's hear from, our experts here what they think as well. And basically, this was the theme from all of them. It was a gastroenterologist, it was a GI surgeon, it was a medical oncologist, there was a genetic counselor, and we had an oncology therapist. And all had the same messaging around there's no one food or nutrient that causes cancer or cures cancer, but rather it's more a pattern of eating that we're looking at in terms of nutrition and cancer risks. So I always remind people this because a lot of the myths that go around focus on one nutrient like sugar, saying, that sugar is so bad for you, you should not have it. Or they focus on soy, saying soy is bad for you, you shouldn't have it. Or, kale is a magical food, you should have that, or you should have this particular supplement because of this one ingredient that's, so amazing for you. But our scientific evidence actually doesn't show that there's any individual nutrients that are sort of, make or break your diet. But it's really more of a habit or pattern of eating. So I think that that will help you wade through some of the information. If someone's making claims about one nutrient or one food being either like toxic or some kind of cure for disease, it is not true. But we do know the right combination of foods in a mostly plant-based diet plays an important role in maintaining healthy cells and reducing growth of cancer cells. That's just how our bodies are designed, is that we nourish ourselves with the foods that we eat. When we get good nutrition, it helps our bodies function. And the immune system is part of our, overall body system. We've got a lot of different immune organs from your GI tract to your liver, to your kidneys, to all these things that help detox and recognize when things are not going right and sort of clean up messes and things like that. And what we know is that eating mostly plants, that doesn't mean you have to eat 100% plants. So I don't necessarily recommend a vegan diet, though if you want to follow a vegan diet, that's perfectly good choice. And you obviously will eat a lot of plants if you're a vegan. So we do like that. When data shows us that vegans and vegetarians have better health outcomes, it's typically because they eat so many plants. It's not necessarily the absence of meat that makes their diet healthy. It's the presence of all those plants. So I always tell people you can eat lots of plants, whether you eat meat or dairy or not, you still can eat lots of plants. And so that's what I talk mostly about. And eating, really, from a nutritional standpoint, eating is your opportunity to promote your health because your body has needs for certain nutrients, phytonutrients, which are plant nutrients, vitamins, minerals, carbohydrates, fats, protein. Those are like the things that our bodies really need. And the only way we can get those is either by eating, or if you're having trouble eating, sometimes we will use a feeding tube in order to deliver those nutrients directly to our intestines. So that's how I approach nutrition. I don't approach nutrition from a whole list of things that you're not allowed to have. But rather the point of nutrition is to nourish your body with the tools that it needs in order to function at its best. And so after cancer treatment, a lot of times people are in a place where maybe they had to limit their choices when they were in treatment because there were only certain things that they could physically eat or that they felt like eating. And as they're coming out of treatment, they're really feeling like, okay, well, now what? How do I get back to kind of regular eating? And so I really want us to see eating as a great opportunity to provide our body the tools that it needs. So, your daily habits for optimized nutrition. This is where I talk a little bit more about your intake habits. So, the things that you do regularly. So, I say it's a habit if you do it 3 times a week or more. Do you eat lots of fruits and vegetables mostly? Do you, drink fluids that are mainly water? Those are types of habits that we want to have. And those habits are more important than any individual foods you do or don't eat. So I don't have a list of foods that, you should never eat. Like, never eat these foods. It's really more about, well, what's your typical pattern of eating? How often do you eat certain things? And so that pattern is much more important, and we're looking for a pattern that gives you plenty of plant nutrients each day. So that means a nutritious diet does include treats. And when I use the word treats, generally I think of sweet things because most people kind of think of sweet treats. But for some people, they're more savory treat kind of people. So whatever it is, I consider treats to be those things that maybe we should eat less of. It doesn't mean we never have them, but it's those things that really bring a lot of joy to our life, but maybe is not necessarily providing our bodies with the nutrition we're needing. And that's totally fine. I often talk about an 80-20 rule, where 80% of the time you are choosing foods because of their nutritional content. So lots of plants and nutrients and fiber and, those types of things. And then 20% of the time, I feel like is a good ratio to just allow yourself to eat whatever sounds good at that time. It might be that you're going out to eat with friends. Eat whatever you want. It might be that you're going to the family picnic. If this is like a once a year family reunion, there's no reason that you need to, skip your favorite foods that you have at the reunion just because of, your nutritious diet. Your nutritious diet should allow for you to have those treats. And part of the challenge, I think, for people is that in America, we tend to have an all or nothing kind of mindset. But probably many of you have heard the encouragement to have more of a mindful mindset or a mindful eating um, focus for your nutrition. It is easy to fall into the trap of cutting out certain foods completely. So I hear people all the time, oh, I'm doing a sugar detox. I'm never gonna, I don't eat any sugar for, I don't know, 75 days or 60 days or whatever. And I think I don't think going that long without eating any sugar is actually a healthy thing to do. I understand the intention behind it, really trying to like change your habits, I think is what people are going for. And some people prefer the sort of cold turkey method to changing habits. And in some cases, that does work, and some cases that's necessary depending on what the habit is. However, when it comes to eating, I do not think it's necessary to do that. I tend to think that changing your habits a little bit at a time is more effective, and a lot more fun. And your eating pattern should support a good quality of life, which includes fun. So it's not the overall pattern of it is the overall pattern of your lifestyle, not any particular food that you avoid or, have every day that matters the most. So what do you eat consistently? How active you are, your daily habits over time, that's what matters. And so for a lot of clients, like if somebody is coming in to see me for a nutritional consult, I will ask them to keep a food record for 3 to 5 days ahead of time. It's very hard to figure out what someone's, pattern of eating is just based on what they say they usually eat, because none of us really pays that much attention. It's hard to identify what your habits are without doing some kind of audit. So oftentimes keeping a food record is a way to kind of see what your habits are. But I would only want you to do it if you're in the right state of mind to not judge yourself, but rather to just seek information from your regular habits. So a lot of people struggle with labeling foods as good or bad, clean or dirty, as if someone's food choices somehow determines their goodness or cleanliness. And that kind of mindset and even using those terms around food can often cause a lot of guilt or shame when people consume foods that they might call treats or cheat foods. And then they have this sort of pride feeling when they're having what they would consider, quote, good foods. And that really makes it hard to have a balanced and peaceful relationship with food. So I do encourage you not to label foods that way. All food is nourishing in one way or another. And so I really prefer to say, yeah, this is a nourishing food. What is it feeding you today? Is this nourishment? Oh, it's giving me fiber. It's giving me vitamin C. It's giving me deliciousness. Most of the foods you eat should really taste delicious to you, and hopefully you find lots of healthy foods that are delicious. But also allowing yourself to have some of these, things that you might consider treats, is it's important to nourish yourself with those things as well. So if I'm having a cookie or something like that, it's nourishing me in lots of different ways, giving energy and giving so much joy. So sometimes it's just our mindset that we need a little bit of work on around treats. And then sometimes we kind of just need to evaluate, well, okay, what are my habits? And part of this is really understanding the your body, respecting it, listening, and learning what you need. When you really pay attention to your body's cues, you start to learn, oh, okay, maybe I'm feeling that way for a reason. Maybe I'm craving a certain something because my body actually needs the nutrition that that thing provides. And then once you start doing those things, you can kind of figure out, oh, am I craving that because I actually need more energy, or I actually need more healthy carbohydrates? Or am I craving that because, you just want it for a special treat? And so we'll talk about the difference between hunger and craving, in a little bit. So respecting your body doesn't necessarily mean you love every aspect of it all the time. I mean, we all have different bodies and we all struggle with, oh, I don't like this or I like that or whatever. But what respecting your body really means is acknowledging what it has endured and continues to do for you. So from like a gratitude practice, you can respect your body by appreciating what it does for you every day as you get up and move about your day. Practicing body respect in your daily life means kind of reframing the way you think, maybe for some of us. And instead of focusing on what you've lost or the things that have changed over the years, either because of a diagnosis or treatment or surgeries or those things, or maybe just the process of getting older. Try to focus on the things that you continue to be grateful for. Stop comparing yourself to a previous version of you. This is really hard. If you find these things to be near impossible, I do encourage you to seek out some good therapists who can help walk you through these things, because I think that this can really bring up a lot of issues far from our past that maybe need to be sort of explored and worked on to help us to better nourish ourselves. But remember that your body has served you in different ways throughout your life. It's done a lot of different things. And instead of measuring yourself against the past, the idea that somehow, you're going to go to some size that you were before or a shape you were before, honor what your body really needs right now. So practicing affirmative statements, repeating things like my body deserves to be fed. Sometimes if you're in a state of mind where you're hungry and you feel like you're fighting yourself, oh, well, I don't want to have that cookie, or I don't want to have, I'm not allowed to have that, or ice cream, I'm not allowed to have that. I'm just going to have something else instead. I think that allowing yourself to have things like that and remind you that your body deserves to be fed. It deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. It deserves to be dressed comfortably in clothes that make you feel comfortable, and that your body has and continues to fight for you. So rather than seeing your body as something you're fighting against, recognizing what your body has done for you and caring for it in a way that you might, encourage a friend to care for themselves. Dress in a way that makes you feel comfortable, and replace the negative thoughts and negative energy about your body with positive ones. So, everybody is going to have critical thoughts arise. And as you have those, keep some of these affirmative statements in mind, and counter with a positive statement. I appreciate my body for getting me through every day. My body is amazing, has done a lot of things. Those are kind of those affirmations that you want to keep in mind so that you can help counter some of the narrative, especially that our culture gives us, that somehow a certain body shape is the best body shape, or that aging itself there's something wrong with it. We all age and there's natural processes of aging that are perfectly normal and are not going to be reversed. All right, so that sort of leads into this idea of flexible nourishment and how to incorporate treats into a nutritious eating plan. So these are the key components of flexible nourishment. Focus on what your body needs, then rather than what you should or shouldn't be eating. So I say don't should on yourself. I think that's actually a therapy kind of mantra. Don't should on yourself. Whoops. Um, but rather think about what is my body telling me right now? Okay, if you feel like you want to eat something, your body's communicating something. What does it need? Build your meals around nutrient-rich food while also leaving room for foods that you enjoy. So always keeping in mind that there's a balance here where are we going for nutrients, but we also want it to be something that's really delicious. Mix and match nutrients for longer lasting energy. So when we talk some about hunger and fullness cues, this is going to be an important component of building your meals and snacks so that you don't get overly hungry. So combine protein, healthy fats, and fiber. Those are the things that really help you feel fuller longer. Leave room for treats. So this might strike you as a little bit odd coming from a dietitian, but the concept would be to give yourself unconditional permission to enjoy treats mindfully. So there's no hard rule around how many treats are you allowed to have every week. But rather, we want to see treats as something that can fit into a mindful eating plan. So, and if your plan is, okay, if my body really says that it wants it and I'm nourishing myself, you know, there's no reason why you shouldn't have a treat. Um, and then listening to your body knows what it needs, so trust it. But you sometimes need to get into the practice of actually listening to your body. And we'll talk about that in just a minute, and also recognizing what it's trying to tell you. And that does take some troubleshooting. And then practice kindness and grace. So eating is a lifelong journey. And I will say, if you're somebody who's come from either a lot of dieting or an environment where people have talked about dieting a lot, or, the mindset of restricting calories, it might be, for you, this is something that's really going to be a mind shift. But remind yourself that food is meant to be enjoyed. Be kind to yourself. When when you're doing your best, and sometimes you might be beating yourself up, this is not a test. No one's giving you a grade on your diet. But I do encourage you to really think about how you're nourishing yourself. Are you giving yourself adequate nourishment? Are you paying attention to your body? Do you allow yourself some treats? And how do you feel? All right, so speaking of mindful eating, kind of the number one thing that you want to do is start single tasking. So when you're eating, just eat, because that's part of recognizing, okay, what does my body need right now? And sometimes the answer is, I need a treat. Sometimes the answer is, I need a walk. So it really just, part of that is paying attention to, am I hungry? Am I full? And the first part of figuring out how hungry or full you are is to actually pay attention when you're eating. So when you're eating, you're just eating. You're, tasting the food, you're taking bites, and you're not distracting yourself with something else. Spend time getting to know your personal hunger and fullness cues. Everybody's a little different. So yes, I mean, we all know what it feels like when your stomach is hungry, but there are other signs of hunger. If you're hangry, if you're irritated, if you tend to get maybe more fidgety or distracted, some of those can be early signs of hunger. So what feels uncomfortable or comfortable? Can you tell the difference between different types of hunger? I think that's important to recognize. And then also speaking specifically for cancer treatment, how does cancer treatment impact hunger cues? If you are currently in treatment or you're recently ended treatment, or you had treatment that affected any area of your GI tract from your mouth all the way down, to your intestines, that can really confuse your cues. And during treatment, a lot of times we're saying, you got to eat, you got to eat, you got to eat. Even if you don't feel hungry, you got to eat. And then, you might be phasing out of that and you're like, I can't even figure out what my when I'm hungry and when I'm not hungry because everything's been so thrown off. And you might have, trained yourself to eat when you're not hungry. So really recognizing kind of where you are in this treatment paradigm or effects, on your body in terms of your treatments. Now, some people can be in treatment and it does not affect their hunger or fullness cues, or they are having to get some of those pre-meds before chemo, that's steroids that really increases your hunger and your appetite. So really paying attention to those things. You might have had shifts in your food preferences. Stress itself will change kind of what foods you need, right? We're going to go for comfort foods when we're under stress. Irregular eating patterns based on your treatment regimen, or, are you taking anti-nausea meds and how is that affecting? And then we talked about the difficulty recognizing when you're hungry or full. And what I tell people is that that's a lot to recover from. So don't expect that you can basically, recover from it right away. Recognizing that that's really hard, and where you are in this journey and figuring out what your next steps are, I think is really important. So that's, what you want to do. So is we're going to talk about hunger and fullness, but knowing your hunger cues is important for you to figure out, is this a craving for something sweet or, a savory treat? Is this a craving or am I actually hungry? And I think those are really important to, in order to differentiate, because that will help to determine your decision making. So let's see. Whoops. Um, so this is kind of the key piece to figure out your hunger and fullness. Before and after you eat, assess where you fall on the scale. And so as you sit down to eat, where are you on a scale of 0 to 10? And this kind of describes the different levels. Are you extremely hungry, lightheaded, potentially weak? 3 to 4 is feeling a physical feeling of hunger, such as stomach growling or feeling of emptiness. And I describe it like, my stomach is eating itself. I think that would probably be like a 2.5. I'm not quite lightheaded or weak, but I have a very strong physical feeling of hunger. Um, 5 to 6 is comfortable and satisfied. You're not full or hungry. And then 7 to 8 is feeling full but comfortable. And 9 to 10 is uncomfortably full. So that is, Thanksgiving meal where, you ate, way more desserts than you could probably handle, but they were so delicious. Um, Sometimes we get uncomfortably full. Most of us feel like I never want to eat that much again when you're that full. But what we're aiming for is eating when you're more at a 3 or a 4. So maybe a slight feeling of physical hunger, but not the stomach is eating itself kind of feeling. And then assess whether you should stop eating around a feeling of 5 or 6. Now, the challenge is a lot of people they eat fast. And it does take some time for a full stomach to actually communicate to the brain that it's full. And so that's part of the other reason why we want people to slow down when they're eating is, chew your food. First of all, you enjoy it a lot more when you taste every bite. But second of all, that means that you're filling your stomach slower. And so it has more of a chance to get that feedback to your brain so that you know when you're getting full. A lot of times, and I'm sure we've all had this experience where we eat so fast and we're so starving and we eat it really, really fast. And then all of a sudden, oh, you're overfull because you didn't give yourself that time to process. So really slowing down and then paying attention to these. And you can keep a hunger and fullness journal. So before you eat, you just sit down and write down a number. And when you're done eating, you write down a number, or you halfway through your meal, you could stop and write down a number and then finish your meal and then write down another number. And that helps you start to tune in to your body. A lot of people, if they feel like they perhaps overeat, rather than focusing on, oh, I should just eat fewer calories, which is a unit of energy, and we want energy, so cutting back calories doesn't necessarily a good thing. But what we want to do is nourish our bodies. And the best way to know if your body is nourished is to pay attention to when it's full and you stop eating when you're full. Now that said, of course, if you're in treatment or having some of the appetite challenges, we can't always, trust that. But in a typical situation, really paying attention will help you know how much food to eat. So I'm not somebody who says you should determine what's on your plate based on the number of calories, unless I'm actually trying to get you to eat more. For the most part, when people ask me about portion sizes, I tell them, you know what? You should, eat the right portion for what your body needs. And that takes some of this intentional, paying attention to your body and how it feels. So somebody did ask how much is enough. If I have a serving of mixed salad and a serving of one vegetable and a piece of fruit, is that enough per meal? So that kind of goes back to the portion question. Like everybody is different. So you will know if you have enough. I think generally, I'm going to assume you like salad and you like vegetables and you like fruit, and you're going to eat what your body wants at that time. And then that is going to be the right amount. So, like at lunch today, I had some soup and I had salad. And it was a salad, a set amount. I don't make myself finish the salad if I don't want to. It can be hard when you're somebody I don't like to waste food. So we don't want to throw it away. You have this thing like, oh, I have to clean the plate. You don't have to clean the plate. You have a couple of different strategies you can go with on this, which is like what I did at lunch is I made the whole salad and I just ate what I wanted. And when I was tired of eating salad, I stopped eating it and I ate as much soup as I wanted. When I was tired of eating soup, I stopped eating it. So I would tell you that. The other strategy you can do is what I try to do with my children, which is please don't put too much on your plate that you're not going to eat. So we start with, okay, let's have a smaller portion and then eat it. And then if you want more, you have more. So I don't, I do say we want people to eat like 4 to 5 cups of fruits and vegetables over a whole day. So if you break that down, I would tell you that's a cup of vegetables at lunch and, a half a cup of fruit or 1 cup of fruit. Um, so that's my general guide, but for the most part, sometimes you're going to eat more and sometimes you're going to eat less, and that's just how our bodies work. So it is important to prioritize nutrient-dense foods like fruits and vegetables and whole grains and healthy proteins, but you do not need to eliminate any particular foods. And that I think is something that can be hard. It sounds marvelous, doesn't it? It sounds great. People will say they want to do that, but then um, I still hear some of the language around, oh, this isn't good for me, or this is, a cheat food or whatever. So really trying to remind yourself, you don't have to eliminate any particular foods. Even the ones that we say, oh, okay, we'll limit those. Limit does not mean avoid. And that's why I always tell people, just because we say, oh, this is, increases risk for cancer. Well, that risk is a relative number. And there's lots of things that we do that are risky. We drive cars, we go on airplanes, even taking treatment, we've chosen that those are risks worth taking. Like, when we choose medical care, we know we make a choice that we expect is going to be better than not doing it. So the same thing with our food choices. When you hear, okay, well, processed meats increase risk for colon cancer. Well, how much is the increased risk? And how much do you eat in order to, and how much do you care? Maybe you don't care if you have processed meats or not. And in that case, don't have them. So that's kind of the balance. A couple of questions in the chat that are really good. Someone said they hear all the time to stay away from sugar after breast cancer. So that's what I call the number one myth, is that, sugar has some sort of magical way to make cancer grow. It does not. Our bodies all produce energy from glucose. That is the functional unit of energy for all cells of our body. So yes, cancer cells also use glucose, but they use glucose at like a really fast rate. So our sort of metaphor for that is a car that's guzzling gas. It's like, like the cancer cell has the gas pedal down to the ground and it's just burning through. And that's why it, quote, glows on a PET scan. But it's not using more sugar than any other part of your body. And when people say sugar, they don't actually really mean sugar, they mean glucose. So there's no reason that you have to completely avoid simple sugars. But we do recommend that, you have some common sense and get a balance of healthy carbohydrates to simple sugars. And then also comment about alcohol in the chat. Alcohol has been shown to increase risk for cancer. It's not necessarily that there's like a level that we see, oh, if you have more than this, it increases your risk higher. Generally, the guidelines are to reduce your alcohol intake. So if you're somebody who's like, I'll quit alcohol, that is not a problem, then we would encourage that. But there's also ways for you to find balance in your alcohol intake. It could be something that you just do on a special occasion, a couple times a month or whatever. And so that's what I don't think I've done a webinar on alcohol. Um, but perhaps I'll do that as a blog post in the next couple months is around how you can approach alcohol from, I think, sort of an evidence-based perspective, but still, if you're somebody who enjoys incorporating a drink in here or there, how you can do that. All right. So my sort of idea around treats is that yes, you should treat yourself. And it should be mindfully, like you should enjoy what you're having. So also in the chat, someone said dark chocolate trail mix with walnuts or almonds in it every night. So I think that's, I would call that a nutritious treat. Partly because yes, you're getting chocolate, but you're getting walnuts and almonds, which we know are plant proteins that give us fiber and healthy fats and protein. So those are very nourishing. And then you've included dark chocolate just as, a way to add a little sweetness to the trail mix. I would call that a nutritious treat versus like this chocolate cake here is a real treat, right? Like we would all, I think, describe this or a brownie, unless this is some kind of black bean chocolate cake. Um, I'm not going to assume that because this looks amazing. And yes, I eat cake and love it. Eat your cake. So I would say that the trail mix idea is awesome, and I would consider it a nutritious sort of snack. Whereas chocolate, cake, or ice cream, or things like that are definitely treats. Um, and so the treats themselves, we're going to eat mindfully. We're going to incorporate whenever, we feel like we want it. But the nutritious snacks or nutritious treats are things that we can probably fit in on a very regular basis. All right. So treats that are delicious and nutritious. So these are like recipes for things that are sweet, but that are basically nourishing. So they're more of a snack than they are necessarily like a dessert or a treat. Um, and what makes them into nutritious treats is that they have phytochemicals. Those are those plant nutrients that interact with vitamins and minerals to give you extra cancer protection. It's why we say to eat lots of plants. It's why walnuts and almonds are considered so nutritious because those are plants. Those plants give you, yes, protein and fat and vitamins and minerals, but they have these other phytonutrients in them that you only find in plants that help our bodies function. So any way that we can get more phytochemicals into our day, the better. We're looking for, I think I already mentioned, phytochemicals, fiber, vitamins, mineral, and, good old hydration. So this is one idea, the mocktails. So speaking of, not having alcohol, or also I think mocktails can be a good, if they're nutritious mocktails, they're going to be an alternative to sugar sweetened beverages. That's kind of what we're looking at here is, what? Sugar sweetened beverages like sodas, like sugar sodas, energy drinks, some of the coffee drinks where they're, mochas have 4 pumps of syrup in it. That's a lot of added sugar for a beverage. And so if we can find a way to have sort of a fun, beverage treat that has less added sugars, then I consider that a win. And anytime you can add more plant nutrients into your beverage or your treat, you're going to help your body have more nutrition. So as we look at this, this picture here, this would be a combination of like I would do 100% grapefruit juice. I love grapefruit juice. So I would do a mix of 100% grapefruit juice and some kind of sparkling water, which has no added sugar, right? So lemon, sometimes they even sell the grapefruit juice flavored sparkling water, the pamplemousse for the fancy name. And then you can cut up some fruit and drop it in there. You can, like in this picture, we have rosemary, added to it. It looks pretty. It looks fizzy. It's fun in a cup. I had a cancer survivor who met with me once, and she said she realized it wasn't the wine that actually she enjoyed so much every night. It was drinking something out of a fancy glass. So you can take your wine glasses and you can put mocktails in it, and it's a lot of fun. And then you get nutrition, you get hydration, you still get flavor. 100% fruit juice is sweet. So it meets that need. Like if your body is telling you, I want a sweet treat, you can choose either, a sugar sweetened coffee or sugar sweetened soda. That would be a treat, a traditional, oh, I'm treating myself. Or you can say, well, hey, my body's telling me I want a sweet beverage. Is there a sweet beverage that I can enjoy that also will nourish me a little bit more than some of, my go-tos, which might be a soda? And that is kind of, an approach you can take. I'm not saying you never have a soda. I think if you have soda once a week, it's totally fine. Just like with alcohol, if you find some kind of, habit that is once a week on alcohol, I do not think that's going to cause a lot of problems. But those are kind of choices each individual has to make. So that's why I call it a choose your own adventure or kind of figuring things out. And that's why you want to really be in touch with your own body and mind to figure out, well, okay, what's right for, me, Julie, might not be the same answer for you or for your friend or for your spouse or whatever. Everybody kind of has to do this dance for themselves. Other beverages that are sweet and delicious. So let's say, oh, I'm craving something sweet or a milkshake. Maybe you want a milkshake and that's totally fine. Or maybe your body wants something sweet that comes through a straw and it could be a smoothie. And by having a smoothie or making it, you get frozen fruit. You might even get vegetables. If you've ever come to my cooking classes, I often make green smoothies for people because it's amazing that it can taste good and it has spinach in it. Um, any of these. So this is what I call a smoothie your way. This is like you could substitute any frozen fruit in here that sounds good to you. And then you put in a half a cup of frozen spinach. You put some fresh or dried fruit in it. So one of my favorite ways to add sweetness to smoothies is with dates. Medjool dates are so sweet and delicious. You can throw some seeds in there like chia seeds or flax seeds, and then use milk or kefir as your base. And that can be a pretty, high fiber, high protein sweet drink, and there's no added sugars in it at all. So you know what? Nothing wrong with having a milkshake sometimes, but also I'm going to tell you, we'll come back to this one. This best smoothie ever tastes like a chocolate peanut butter milkshake when you make it. So those are either way, you're not going to go with the wrong answer, right? Chocolate milkshake, chocolate smoothie. Neither answer is wrong. Paying attention to, does my body need fiber and nutrition and vegetables, or have I had fruit and lots of fruits and vegetables today? And you know what? I just wanted a milkshake, or this is just one of those days. I'm going to have a milkshake. Either choice is perfectly fine. So this is a really delicious recipe. I do have a recipe video for this on my website. So it's cancerdietitian.com/best smoothie ever, or just smoothie, I think. But then this is my new favorite smoothie. I'm going back to the cherry lemon smoothie. So anybody who lives where there's a Chick-fil-A, which I think Chick-fil-A is now kind of going everywhere, but they have seasonal milkshakes, and seasonal flavors of like their lemonades. And there is a season in the summer where it's cherry berry lemon freezy season, and it's delicious. And I made this smoothie and I was like, oh my gosh, I've just made the cherry berry lemon squeezy thing from Chick-fil-A, only with actual real food. And so I love this recipe. It is a little more intensive to prep, then the best smoothie ever is super quick and easy. And you can make it year round because all it has in it basically is peanut butter, banana, cocoa powder, spinach, and milk, and that's available any time of year. The cherry lemon smoothie, little harder to, get good cherries all the time. But in the frozen section, it's pretty easy. So you use frozen cherries, lemon juice. Now, the more lemon juice, the better if you're in my body, because my taste buds love sour. So I actually have used like probably two or three lemons, squeezing the juice, and then I'll put a little bit of the lemon peel into the smoothie as well, which gives extra plant nutrients. The skin of citrus fruits have additional phytonutrients. Um, I don't use vanilla extract actually. That must have been part of the original recipe, and I'm always one that tries to take shortcuts to make things easier. I don't do the vanilla at home. Lemon zest, that's the skin, right? So I mentioned that. The medjool dates, it says optional, but this really helps add the right sweetness to counter the lemon juice. And the medjool dates, to make it easy on your blender, you can soak them in like hot water. If you don't have time for that, you don't have to. And then I use yogurt and milk or a cup of kefir. And it is like the perfect combo of tangy and sweet. So this I think is a great, if you're craving something like lemonade or something like that, this could be a great option for like totally nutritious snack that would meet kind of that need for sour and sweet. All right, so you blend it. I mean, do you really need directions for a smoothie? Put it in there and blend it. But I did mention the medjool dates soaking. Okay, let's see. Now so I did a cooking class last month, and some of you were there, I think. And we made these recipes. So I'll be loading them up on my website, I promise, in the next week. But I really liked these because they were easy, they were delicious. They could be like a breakfast bar or they could be a great snack. And the nice thing is that layer in the middle that looks like delicious, jelly is a really simple combo of applesauce, dried cranberries, cinnamon, cloves. Like that is the middle part. It's so easy. And then the rest of it is the dry ingredients with butter and sugar. And then you basically smush it for the bottom layer and then crumble it on top. So it's a really simple recipe, but it was delicious. And I think it does meet like if you're looking for a cookie or a sweet treat or something like that, it's very nutritious, but still does help your taste buds really, get that sweet taste that they want. Pretty simple. It goes in an 8x8 pan. So if you have a larger pan, you just need to up the ingredients. And then you cook it, bake it. Pretty easy. Now this one was also really fun, and my kids, especially my 8-year-old, he liked it. He's somebody who really likes sweets, especially at night. He tends to eat most of his nutrients, you know, between dinner and bedtime, and we go with it. And so a lot of times he goes to get his bath, he wants to eat snacks while he's in the bath, or he wants a bedtime snack. And these have been really great to kind of be like a sweet treat, maybe sort of like a popsicle substitute. They're cold. So I don't love them in the winter because I like warm things in the winter. But in the summer, when you're really feeling like you want something icy and cold, and these are great. And they were really simple. So I just put them on a pan, parchment paper. You mix the maple syrup or honey with the yogurt plain. If you do flavored, you don't really need to add the maple syrup or honey. So you can save a step if you just buy a flavored Greek yogurt that you like. You want Greek yogurt because it's thicker, so it's going to make this bark a little bit better. And you can do middle fat or full fat Greek yogurt if you prefer. It will have a little more creamy texture and less of an icy texture to your yogurt bark. If you're using more fat is going to be more creamy and less fat is going to be more icy. And then you just top it with things. So like this says strawberries, coconut flakes, chocolate chips. I couldn't really taste the coconut. I like coconut. I couldn't really taste it, so I probably would put more or mix it in with the Greek yogurt. The chocolate chips were delicious. The strawberries were delicious. When I made it at home, I used whatever berries we had. And it was a great way to kind of use them up. I think you could probably also, if you cut grapes in half, you could put those on there. And that's just a fun way to use up your fruits, and to have something that's, a little crunchy, a little sweet, kind of like frozen yogurt or ice cream, but still meets that nutrition, getting lots of different nutrition. Um, let's see. So someone made a mention about diabetes. And so if you have blood sugar issues, so that's the one time where we do need to kind of pay a little bit more attention to the carbohydrates. It's not necessarily the added sugars that you have to worry as much about, more so just looking at total carbohydrates and keeping it pretty steady and even throughout the day. So I think all of these sweet treats are perfectly appropriate for anyone with diabetes. I would tell you that you want to be checking your blood sugars. You want to see how your blood sugars are doing. And yes, your portions will need to be adjusted to also make sure that your blood sugars are staying stable. But generally, for people who are having blood sugar issues or have to do a little bit more intensive blood sugar management by steadying their carbohydrate intake, we still, would encourage you to have, 45 grams of carbohydrates at meals and 15 or 20 at snacks. And for sure, this yogurt could be, or even the smoothies, you may only have half of the smoothie serving. But again, that everybody is going to have a different amount of these things when you eat them. So sometimes I eat the whole smoothie and it's a meal. And sometimes I eat a third or a half of the smoothie, either because I'm less hungry at that time, or because I'm splitting it with other people, or because I'm having something else with it. And so how much you have, you kind of need to pay attention to how full you are. And then if you are managing diabetes, also, where are your blood sugars 2 hours after you eat? And that can kind of give you an idea of, oh, did I, overdo it on the carbohydrates, or potentially do you need your medication adjusted to help you, be able to have an adequate carbohydrate intake? Oh, yes. Okay. So somebody asked about the recipes as slides. So if you're watching the recording or you're here on live, what I'm going to do is like send it out as a PDF. And then we'll also post it on the website. But yeah, I'll send all of these slides with the recipes on it as a PDF document, a printable, if you will. And what's my next recipe on here? Okay, the chocolate avocado pudding, which is in the chat or in the Q&A. Um, this person said she's addicted to the chocolate avocado dip. Is one full recipe over 3 days too much? Again, I can't answer that for you. Only you can answer that for you, but I would not want it to go to waste. I think a recipe over 3 days sounds great. It kind of depends what you're eating it with too, right? But it is delicious. I even had a staff person at one of our local cancer centers reach out to me and say, I heard you have a recipe for chocolate avocado pudding. So I sent it to him. It is delicious. I had a chef. I can't remember what his name was. Ryan. I can't remember. It's been so long, but he was the one that introduced me to this when I did a talk for a brain tumor national group, and we were partnered together. So he made the recipes and I talked about the nutrition. And when he first told me this, I was like, that is really weird, but it is really delicious. So all you need is an avocado, a quarter cup of honey, a quarter cup of cocoa powder, vanilla extract, water, salt, blend. And it might sound weird, but if you think about it, a pureed avocado has the texture of pudding. And when you put honey, that makes it sweet, and the cocoa powder that makes it taste like chocolate, you've got chocolate pudding. So I say, you know what? You can eat it like use it as a fruit dip. I think that's a great snack. Or frost your cake with it. Or, just eat it with a spoon, whatever. But yeah, I think one dip over 3 days sounds perfectly reasonable to me. She said she's eating it with apples. Agreed. That is one of my favorite ways of doing it. Also question in the Q&A, should we stay away from collagen after breast cancer treatment? I'm assuming this is like collagen powder or collagen pills. I, I mean, I wouldn't take them because I don't think they do anything. Um, and Therefore, I'm not concerned it would be harmful unless it was contaminated with something, which is always the challenge with supplements or powders that are not don't have to go through the food process. If they're supplements or they're, not they're like herbal, if they can sell them under that type, basically they don't have to do any safety testing. And that always concerns me because I think it can be contaminated with things that aren't good for you. The collagen itself, it's just a protein. So your body breaks it up when you digest it. It's not like it absorbs it directly as collagen. And so I don't think there's data that it's beneficial. I don't know that there's data that it's harmful. I would just be pretty cautious about the source of it and whether it's contaminated. All right, let's see what other, do I have another recipe? Okay, so we blend up our avocados and ingredients and that's it. So those are all the recipes I was going to share today. Someone also asked about sourdough bread, which I grew up in California, actually in the Bay Area. So I am a little bit of a San Francisco sourdough snob. But how much sourdough bread and how much a day? Um, so yeah, it's funny because this person also says, is that, is whatever, 3 slices a day too much? Is it too much sugar? Is it good because it's fermented? And these are all questions that we've all like, mused over. I have as well. Most sourdough breads are not whole grain. So they don't have the fiber and all the phytonutrients that whole grain bread has. If you can find a whole grain sourdough bread, which I think I found it once at Trader Joe's, and if you can get a whole grain, 100% whole grain sourdough bread, that's just as good as any other whole grain. So I don't have a problem with a sandwich and having it at breakfast or anything like that. If it's a, enriched processed white bread, which most of them are, I still don't have a major problem with that. Guidelines used to have this sort of tagline about whole grains saying make half your grains whole. And I was always like, well, just make as many as you can whole that, work for you. So again, the sourdough bread to me, if it's like a enriched white bread, or some people, there's a certain type of artisan bread like brioche or whatever. It's delicious. It makes the meal complete, right? And it's not the same if you use the whole grain version. I'm not really worried that much about it. If you eat whole grains, otherwise, and you eat lots of fruits and vegetables and beans, nuts, and seeds, you're gonna get fiber and phytochemicals from everything else. And the sourdough bread, is gonna fit in just fine. If you're only eating sourdough bread with jelly and your, lunchtime sandwich is like sourdough with, I don't know what, like some meat and cheese, and you don't have any vegetables on it, and you don't eat any fruit, and you don't eat any salad, and then at dinner you just have, you know, something else that's typical American, whatever, pizza, and no vegetables, then I don't think it's actually the sourdough that's the problem, right? So to me, it seems like you probably have the right balance. I can't remember if this is the same person that does, yeah, the almonds and nuts and that kind of thing. I think it's totally fine. Assuming, you have whole grains in some other context. Again, it's that balance. And when you have lots of plant nutrients, you just get a lot more flexibility with your foods. All right, so this is kind of wrapping it up. Mostly, I'm encouraging you to have a non-judgmental relationship with food, and that means that treats are just part of your nutrition plan, right? They don't have this sort of temptation power that makes you feel good or bad. They are just things there that you can enjoy when you want them, when you feel like that's what you need. So, having a non-judgmental relationship with food means removing guilt, shame, rules from eating, and rather seeing food as nourishment, enjoyment. It's not something you need to control or fear or moralize or say good or bad. It's just, it is what it is. And you seek out the foods that your body needs for nourishment, and sometimes what you most need for nourishment is some kind of great treat. So these are my take-home points. First of all, practice mindful eating and flexible nourishment. Track your hunger and fullness to determine if you're hungry or craving something. So I think that's an important difference that I didn't touch on as much as I wanted to. If you're hungry, you need to eat some food. And sometimes we're actually hungry, and our body, what we experience is a craving for chocolate, and we can't stop eating. So if you find that you are feeling like you overeat the treats, like eat more than is a reasonable amount, I would argue you may actually be hungry and also wanting that treat. And so recognizing that if you're hungry, you need to nourish yourself. So allow yourself the treat, but also give yourself some other nourishment to go with it. Like with my kids, sometimes, okay, they want candy, they're going to have milk with it. Or let's have a fruit and a milk and a protein and your treat. And so you can have it all. But if you find that you do overeat treats a lot, I would guess that you're actually probably hungry and you're not nourished enough either earlier in the day or even at that moment. A true craving is really something that can be met with a small amount. So thinking of like, oh, one little piece of dark chocolate. Okay, that's a craving. You met it. Moving on. So those are the differences between hunger and craving, and that's something that you kind of have to tease out yourself. Have regular meals and snacks to help your body and mind regulate. If you don't have regular meals, so you skip meals or you don't eat for a long time in the morning or when the day starts, you will have a really hard time, um, you know, to control some of the ways that you recognize your hunger and fullness cues because your body's going to be really hungry if you haven't fed it. So it's important for blood sugar management, actually, for gut health, for bowel management, and for your brain to have the adequate amount of glucose to function well, to have regular meals and snacks. So kind of figure out what your pattern is and what works for you and try to keep that on a regular basis. And get your bonus plant nutrients with your nutritious treats. Like those are really great opportunities. When you're craving something sweet, okay, you could have something sweet that also gives you bonus plant nutrients. So that is it from the content today. Let me make sure I got all the questions covered here. Uh, so let's see. A couple of things that you can do to learn more. Subscribe to my email list, which probably most of you are on because if you got an email that said, hey, you're invited to join me, I sent it yesterday saying tomorrow, then you're on my email list. But if you didn't get that email, like you're a client at Cancer Services and you just signed up from our newsletter or whatever, make sure you're on my cancer dietitian email. You can sign up for my Survivor Diet email series, and that's an 8-week series that kind of once a week gives you a little tip around what's recommended for cancer survivors. So that's at cancerdietitian.com/survivor diet. If mindful eating is something you want to focus more on, I have a mindful eating series. Also by email, it's cancerdietitian.com/mindful eating. I have other webinars, cancerdietitian.com/webinars. And then there's really great resources around mindful and intuitive eating, like paying attention to your hunger and fullness at intuitiveeating.org. So I do recommend that as well. And for anyone who happens to be local to Winston-Salem or the Triad of North Carolina, I do offer one-on-one consultations through Cancer Services. So all you have to do is email or call me. If you are outside of the Triad or North Carolina area and you're interested in a consult, I don't do those outside of the area, but I'm happy to help connect you or give you some ideas on where to look for a good oncology or survivorship dietitian. So that is all I have for today. Thank you all so much for joining, and I will send out the slides and the recipes in the next day and then post the recipes and the webinar recording on the website. So if you found it helpful and you know somebody else who might benefit from this information, you can share it with them. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.